Hi, I'm Toby.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome to the Pure Property Podcast with Track Capital, where we talk about all things property and property investment. The aim of the podcast is to give you our industry insight and knowledge in bite-sized chunks to help you invest intelligently. Now, we've got a good show this week, but we also had a really good show last week as well, didn't we, Nick? And I think it's something that's been received quite well by a lot of the listeners.
Yeah, so we had Sam on from Prosperity Wealth last week, just running through his experience in the property market and learning a bit about prosperity as well. So it was our first guest on the podcast, so it made a nice change, I'm sure, from mine and Toby's voices. But yeah, it's something that we want to do more of in the future. So we've got a few potential developers lined up, and we're hopefully going to get some industry experts in for things like mortgage providers and limited company setup and management as well. So really speaking to people who know what they're talking about. So yes, there's plenty to come on that side as well.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to those. Yeah, it was definitely insightful having Sam on and hearing it from that sort of developer perspective, which is always good, and also finding a bit more about Birmingham, which they went over. But this week we are talking about Liverpool and the Liverpool property market, which, as we all know, is proving very popular at the moment. We've got a couple developments there. Liverpool is doing very well property investment wise, and the property market we're seeing has high demand from UK and overseas investors as well. So, Nick, why don't you let us know why it's popular?
Yeah, certainly. So I mean, as you mentioned, Liverpool's really a household name in terms of the regional cities across the UK for both domestic investors and the guys overseas. Gets a lot of attention from the Middle East and the Far East. And I think partly it's due to people being just generally familiar with the city. So the sports teams, I think, play a big role in that. So Liverpool and Everton. You've got the whole Beatles story as well, with them getting sort of effectively world famous at that time and bringing Liverpool to the to our TV screens. And then nowadays, obviously, the universities across the city. So people don't actually realise, but I think there's actually 4 in total. So Toby will speak a bit more about education later. But yeah, you've got the University of Liverpool and Liverpool John Moore, which are the main ones. So the big student presence there. So effectively, people I think are familiar and they know the city. Now, what we've seen over recent years is further investment go into Liverpool, and we've seen really strong performance on the property market side. So in terms of rental yields and in terms of appreciation and growth as well. So word is kind of spread, and we're seeing a lot of interest from investors in terms of focusing on Liverpool, maybe offering a cheaper entry level in comparison to the likes of Manchester, your Birmingham's, etc. So for us, it's a fantastic entry level city for people starting to build a property portfolio. But yeah, Liverpool certainly has plenty to offer. So I think today we're going to run through some more intricate details on what's happening in the city and give you more of an insight into the mechanics of Liverpool and what's happening there. So maybe Toby, if you want to sort of kick things off.
Yeah, as we mentioned last time when we looked at Manchester as a property investment city and area, we look at the investment fundamentals of a city or location. So that's what we're going to run through again today. I'll start things off with education. So Nick already touched on the university side of things, which is a big factor in the Liverpool property market, because with these universities, as you mentioned, the John Moore University, Liverpool Hope University, and the University of Liverpool, it comes a lot of students, and they all need somewhere to live. So what we've seen with the data recently, there's over 50,000 students that live in Liverpool. Yet their demand for housing is met by a substantial undersupply. So demand is high and supply is low. And even despite the increase in student numbers, there's still no massive influx of the luxury student accommodation or good student accommodation that's needed. And it's historically been low for quite some time. So again, this has created like a snowball effect. The longer it's gone on, the bigger this gap has got. Traditional buy-to-lets in Liverpool, they still are being utilized by students, but students, again, the way the sort of demographics have shifted and trends have shifted, they are looking towards more that real high quality purpose-built student accommodation, which there is quite a high lack of at the moment. So these sort of the other side of the standard buy-to-lets is they tend to be a bit outdated and located on the outskirts of the city. And again, students are looking for stuff that's close on their doorstep. And as we know, these days, young students, young people, they want everything here and now. And that is included when they're looking at accommodation and what's available to them, i.e. the university being here and now, as in on their doorstep, gyms there, games rooms, etc., etc. So yeah, like a lot of the cities currently, well, the major cities with universities, the international students are quite heavily sort of prominent and located in Liverpool to use the universities. And again, they look for the high quality student accommodation. So in short, you've got the education side as a fundamental for property investing, because you've got good number of students, good quality students are there. The one thing we have noticed is there's an undersupply, so more student accommodation is needed. And we have seen an increase in purpose-built student accommodations being built and in the pipeline, but obviously there's always room for more.
Yeah, certainly. I think just touching on a couple of those points there. So, yeah, it's really important to remember this big presence of effectively overseas and non-resident students coming into to stay in our major cities. A lot of them do stay on after, and even those from the UK, the retention rates of the likes of Liverpool and Manchester are some of the highest out there. So, a lot of this quality talent is staying on and working for major employers in the city. So ultimately, if they come a master's student or they stay on and work for as a graduate in the city, again, that's our core tenant base that we're aiming for as buy-to-let investors. So yeah, having a strong educational base in any city you're investing in is really, really important. They add a lot to the economy. Okay, perfect. So another thing that's really, really important and kind of a catchphrase that you hear quite a lot these days is regeneration. So what we're doing today is trying to be a bit more specific and look into some actual projects that are going on in Liverpool to really try and give you an understanding of the amount of money that's being ploughed into the city, because ultimately this is what will drive up values in the long term and cause that gentrification. So the first one, and without doubt the flagship regeneration master plan in Liverpool at the moment, is Liverpool Waters. So this is one of the largest regen projects happening in Europe. It's being completed by a company called the Peel Group, who are quite substantial in themselves. They've got about 2,500 employees across the country, and they are actually responsible for doing Media City UK in Salford Quays, Manchester. I think they did a joint venture with Legal and General there. So they're now, they've proven their model and what they can do to a city. Media City got huge attention. You had the BBC going there, ITV moved there. So big things are expected for Liverpool Waters in Liverpool. Now, it's a £5.5 billion project. Okay, so it's made up of multiple phases, effectively running along the waterfront of Liverpool. So it's really going to change the look and the feel of the city. It's a 60-hectare site, and ultimately, what they're trying to create is a world-class mixed-use waterfront quarter. So you're going to be having 15 to 17,000 new jobs created there by the time it's finished. So it should have a knock-on effect. There's going to be loads of commercial space, leisure, retail, bit of residential accommodation as well. So certainly going to be a lot happening. I'd really encourage investors, if you're considering Liverpool or you've already got property in Liverpool, go online and have a look at the Liverpool Waters website and their social media accounts to really get an understanding of the size and the caliber of this type of master scheme that we're seeing. And of course, part of that is the new Everton football stadium that's going in, Bramley Moor Dock. So that's been given a go ahead. That's £500 million worth of investment alone. 52,000 seater capacity stadium. I was looking at the pictures earlier. It's actually really, really nice. It's right on the waterfront, so it looks pretty impressive. But that should generate. There's talks of it generating 1.3 billion for the local economy, as well as 15,000 jobs as well. So, in essence, what we're seeing is all this money from private investors going into the Liverpool waterfront, and we're really going to see an influx of ultimately our tenant base again. That's what we're looking for here. So that's one project, and that's certainly the biggest. And then you've also got another scheme that you may see advertised and companies like ourselves mentioning it is the Knowledge Quarter. So this is effectively a regen program between some key stakeholders. Uh, it's not quite Liverpool city centre. As you look at the map, it's just to the right of the city centre. So that involves the universities, the hospital, and Liverpool City Council themselves. They're effectively getting together and really trying to focus on this 450-acre site with £2 billion worth of investment going into it. So there's lots of different schemes and phases of that regen project in itself. Paddington Village is the flagship one, so that in itself is £1 billion worth of investment, 30 acres. So again, we're showing that there's a lot of companies, both commercial and public in this case, really believing in Liverpool and what it can offer. So yeah, ultimately in the long term, we really hope that's going to have a positive impact on property values and demand for quality residential city centre apartments.
Yeah, it's exciting times ahead for Liverpool, and I think at such an early stage of this regeneration, buying now or if you've bought recently, it's an excellent time to get in because you're getting in at a very early stage. And once all this takes off and once it gets bigger and bigger, it's only going to do wonders for the property market. So exciting times ahead, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. Another fundamental we look at is employment, employers as well. So, I mean, you touched on the waterfront regeneration. Part of that regeneration is obviously underway and already complete, and you can find companies like PwC and Savills located there. Another company that has their factory in Liverpool is one I didn't know till very recently. So obviously, Nick, when you think obviously Christmas and eating your cheese, what do you need to go with that cheese?
You need some crackers.
Exactly. And we can find Jacob's Crackers Factory in Liverpool, which, yeah, is excellent, exciting stuff. But no, it's, again, you've got a big factory base there, which is creating some excellent employment. And that one's actually located in Aintree. You've got Unilever's. They're based there, obviously home care and personal care research and development. They have major programs for hair, laundry, deodorants, and household care, and that's all run from that site. They have world famous brands such as Dove, Domestos, Tresemme, Comfort, and Surf, and they're all there. Another one as well, you've got Thai Fu, the tasty tea. So if you love a cup of tea, Liverpool is where Thai Fu factory is based. Again, great employment there. And another one, I don't know if many people know this, and I guarantee many people watch it and wouldn't have a clue where it is, but QVC are actually based in Liverpool as well, which is good. But obviously these are just a small, obviously, dose of sort of the bigger scale, sort of as in with factories and headquarters, etc. But of course, there's lots of businesses operating out of Liverpool, which is great. And as we've said, going forward in the future with the regeneration, there's going to be more companies that will be heading to Liverpool for sure.
Definitely. I think just touching on that point, I think as a city, it's a good place to potentially start up. You can imagine how commercial premises are a bit cheaper than the likes of, your Manchesters, your Birminghams. And then just general living costs are probably a bit lower as well. So I imagine within that vicinity, there's plenty of small to medium size businesses operating in the city. And obviously, a couple of these were more factory manufacturing focused, but obviously they do have, all the admin, marketing, HR, and all the office-based roles that go with it as well. So plenty of young professionals in the city, and I'm certain over the next few years we'll see some big announcements of companies moving and setting up Liverpool as their main operation centre. So yeah, definitely one to keep an eye out on the employment side of things. So just very quickly touching on another aspect of the fundamentals is like the shops and the leisure. So most people will know Liverpool for Liverpool One. So that's the main shopping district. I mean, it's a mall, but there's plenty of designer outlets there, which get a lot of attention. And you've got bigger stadiums such as the Echo Arena, as it used to be known, which now it's called, I think, M&S Bank or something like that. But that's on the docks and it has plenty of live events. So those larger scale nights will hopefully be coming back soon once people are able to enjoy life a bit more and restrictions are easing. And then, of course, the big one, Liverpool Football Club and Everton Football Club. Big visitor numbers, effectively on a consistent basis. That has been. And then, of course, we've got Liverpool Football Club and Everton Football Club, which is going to see a lot of traffic again once restrictions are eased, and helping those local businesses really thrive. And just in general, I think Liverpool, it's quite a lively city. It tends to have a good atmosphere. It's quite buzzy. There's lots of pubs, bars, restaurants, and just the student nightlife in general is quite unique, and hence why it gets large student numbers. So yeah, having that good social scene around Liverpool really complements the professional scene as well, I think.
Yeah, I think Liverpool and Everton alone, if you can only imagine sort of the millions they bring to the economy for the city, it's incredible. Especially Liverpool, how well were doing, but yeah, how well they did last season, and how they've been performing. They've always been a well known and worldwide known team, very popular, and it was with Klopp coming in and them doing even better and winning the league. It's again sort of massively bolstered that image, and it's obviously doing amazing things to the local economy there, and obviously Liverpool being the best football club in the world. Don't care what
Knew
anyone
that was
says.
coming.
We'll leave that there, because obviously we're not going to win the league this season, so I won't go on too much, otherwise I'll get stick. But yeah, the next thing we look at, transport links. So Liverpool does have significant road, rail and ferry networks, and it also has obviously an international airport and the well-known dock system. So the infrastructure is there, and there's some great transport links via road, rail and obviously air as well. So you have the mainline rail services in Liverpool, which provide the city with links across England, and they're centred on Lime Street Station, which is in the city centre. So again, one of the popular stations that you'll hear people talking about, or especially investors. I know a lot of investors, the first thing they say is how close is it to Lime Street, and that's because it's one of the main line rail service in the city. You've also got Merseyrail, which is Liverpool's local hybrid suburban urban rail network as well, and also one for the future, and one you hear us talk about very often, is HS2, so the high speed rail, and that is going to be cutting the travel time to London from 132 minutes down to 94 minutes, which is, again, incredible, and only going to speed up that commute into London.
Okay, perfect. So that rounds off the transport section. So now we'll have a look at the general performance of the property market in Liverpool. So I'll kick things off then with looking at the rental yields and the income side of things. And then after, Toby can look at more the appreciation and growth. So yeah, a lot of people may know this already, but Liverpool offers a much lower entry level in comparison to Manchester and Birmingham and other cities as well. So having said that, the tenant market is still there. So the rental values hold up quite well. As a result, the rental yields are very attractive. And for those that don't know, rental yields are effectively the measurement of the return on investment from your rental income versus what you paid for the property. So effectively, it's a universal way to measure the profitability of a rental income in any one property. So Liverpool is renowned for having very strong rental yield figures. This was evident from the Totally Money yield map for 2020. Effectively, this was a comparison of the top 25 best performing postcodes across the entire UK for average rental yields. Now, what we actually saw, and it is a data source that we quote a lot, but Liverpool appeared at 6 times of the top 25 postcodes. So there's 6 postcodes in Liverpool that feature in the top 25 across the entire UK, with L1 being number 1. And of those Liverpool postcodes, the average rental yields from a gross perspective were 7.13 all the way up to 10%. Now, that's taking in freehold and new build properties, but that gives you a real indication of the general performance of Liverpool in terms of rental yields. It's really, I don't think there was another city featured that heavily in the top 25. So that's a great starting point. And then also looking more on the short let market. Some people may have heard of the phrase serviced accommodation. Effectively, what that means is you still give your keys over to a management company when you're doing your buy to let model, However, what they will do is they'll rent it on the likes of Airbnb and Booking.com on a short-term basis. They'll charge those visitors a premium. And as a result, over the year, it really allows property investors to generate a much higher rental yield. So instead of looking at 7 8% as a gross yield, on some research done lately by Portico, they showed that they could get anywhere from 13.6 up to 27.2% as a gross return on the short-term let market. Yes, you will have obviously significant costs involved in that, and that is a gross figure. However, you can see how this clearly brings it above the normal traditional 12-month AST model. So we really encourage our investors to consider the serviced accommodation model if they can, and try and pick a development which has that legal approval in the lease, just so it's all above board and you're doing it all in line with the regulations. But it's a great way to try and improve cash flow. And sorry, just the last thing I wanted to point out as well is that of the top 10 postcodes that Portico Host analysed in 2019 across the Northwest, the top 8 were in Liverpool. So again, that gives us another reflection of how strong the market is in general in terms of the letting side of things.
Yeah, excellent. So following on from that, we can look at sort of the actual rental market in terms of tenant demand, rental prices, etc. And if we look at the latest quarterly report from HomeTrack, we saw that rental prices are actually up 3.1% in Liverpool, and that's also been the case the previous year, where they were up 3%. So the previous year also increasing 3%. This is a clear indication of the strong demand now, and we mentioned obviously supply being an issue in Liverpool, but yeah, you need the demand to push those sort of prices up, which we can clearly see from the data that we're looking at, which hasn't changed. So supply is still low, demand's high, so I can probably see those prices continuing to increase. The affordability level in Liverpool for a single earner is 24%, which again is good. That's also always a good thing to look at, because you want to make sure that if you're buying a property in a rental area, you need to make sure people can afford to rent it. And we can see that is still the case, which again just further shows that there is room for growth in Liverpool because the affordability levels aren't stretched. And we can also see that the average time to find a tenant and rent the property out is 12 days, so under 2 weeks, which again is very, very good. So strong there in terms of what you'd be potentially looking at in voids, tenant demand, and also rental prices. It is all very positive. And then we can then look at the property prices and the capital growth. So the latest HomeTrack report, House Price Index, showed a 6.4% increase year on year in property prices in Liverpool. And that is only second to Manchester. So again, very positive in terms of the property prices. And we have seen consistently Liverpool property prices increasing over the last 10 years. Zoopla records that the prices have increased around 30%, which is a very strong average over, if you average that over year on year. And then we have the Savills forecast, which has the region in at 28.8% house price increase over the next 5 years. So again, we are seeing very positive data coming out of Liverpool, and this doesn't look like it's going to be slowing or going down anytime soon, and this is very early stages, so we do see this continuing. Again, what we spoke about previously in this podcast are further reasons why we have confidence in Liverpool and the property market, and why it's going to continue in this direction.
Yeah, that's a really good summary, and I think it's really important to consider both the quantitative side, i.e., the percentage rates of the yields, the percentage rates of the forecast, and how it's performed previously, but then also more the qualitative side, so the regeneration and the transport plans and what's happening in the city, etc., etc. So, from looking at Liverpool, I think there's a really good balance between the positive data and then the more general investment going into Liverpool overall. So from my side, it's a city I'm exceptionally confident in. It's one of my favourite at the moment, just because it's still got that high rental yield rate. And I think there's going to be a lot of attention continued to be focused on Liverpool in the coming years. So, yeah, somewhere that we're personally focusing a lot on. We're putting a lot of our marketing budget there. We're speaking actively to a lot of developers in Liverpool, really, really involved in the market there. And yeah, looking forward to getting up there over the next few weeks as well. So, perfect. Hopefully that gives everyone a good overview. Toby, do you want to let us know what we've got potentially planned for next week?
Yeah, so next week's going to be an interesting one. What we are going to do is we're going to do a surprise Q&A for Nick and I. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask each other 3 questions which we have no idea are coming, so we won't know what question we are being asked, such as sort of like the common investor questions or just property market general questions, whatever it may be. Who knows? Because neither one of us is going to know what each other is asking each other. And yeah, then we'll be put on the spot and we'll be giving a live response. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about this one because I think you're going to try and stitch me up here, Nick. So I'm going to have to think long and hard about my 3 questions. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And you can see, obviously, how we react in such a tense live situation.
Yeah, I think it will be something a bit changed because obviously we do a lot of research and reading into our podcasts, and we try and make sure they're as informative as possible. So getting some, off the cuff responses to some perhaps some underhand or more detailed questions should be some good listening.
Yeah, and I mean, are you going to put a time frame on this? Because when I'm put on the spot, I can waffle. I can really,
I think
really
we'll
waffle.
have to put a digital timer for 60 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, or play me out like the Oscars. They start playing the music when they've got to get them off the stage.
Yep.
Yeah, just fade me out. We'll have to do something like that because I probably, once you get me going, I just won't stop. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting next week. Hope you enjoyed the episode this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.